My daughter made me sleep in the attic during my visit, but she didn't know about my lottery. Win. My name is Nettie Williams, and I am 63 years old. After retiring as an elementary school teacher in Maine, I never expected my life would change so dramatically. When I won $43 million in the lottery, I kept it quiet while planning a visit to my only daughter, Amanda, in Chicago. I was so excited to reconnect with her after years of limited contact. Little did I know she would put me in a dusty attic while treating her in-laws to luxury guest rooms. Where are you watching this from? Hit subscribe if you have ever felt undervalued by family, and join me on this unexpected journey. I have lived a modest life in Rockport, Maine for most of my adult years. My little cottage by the sea was perfect for me and my late husband, Frank. We were never wealthy, but we had enough. Frank was a dedicated postal worker who never missed a day until cancer took him 6 years ago. The void he left was enormous, but I found ways to keep moving forward. After 35 years of teaching third graders at Rockport Elementary, I finally retired 2 years ago. My retirement party was small but meaningful, with former students spanning 3 decades coming to wish me well. My days now revolve around simple pleasures that bring me joy. My garden has become my sanctuary, especially the roses Frank and I planted together on our 30th anniversary. Tuesday mornings are reserved for my book club at the local library, where 8 of us women, most widowed like me, discuss everything from historical fiction to memoirs. Thursdays, I volunteer at the hospital reading to children in the pediatric ward. It gives me purpose, especially since my own grandchildren live so far away. My only real splurge has been a weekly lottery ticket, a tradition Frank and I started years ago. We used to joke about what we would do if we ever won. Frank always said he would buy a fishing boat, while I dreamed of establishing a scholarship fund for promising students who couldn't afford college. It became my way of keeping our little ritual alive after he passed. My relationship with my daughter Amanda has been complicated for years. She was always ambitious even as a little girl. While other children played house, Amanda played office, complete with a toy briefcase her father bought her for Christmas when she was 7. She was the first in our family to attend college, something Frank and I scraped every penny together to make happen. I even took a second job cleaning offices at night so she could attend Northwestern University without crippling loans. After graduating with honors, Amanda landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago. That's where she met Bradley, her now husband, whose family owns a chain of luxury car dealerships across the Midwest. From the moment they started dating, I noticed Amanda changing. Her calls home became less frequent, her visits sporadic. When she did call, conversations revolved around the expensive restaurants Bradley took her to, the exclusive clubs they joined, the vacations to places I could only dream of visiting. Their wedding 8 years ago was extravagant, held at a vineyard in California that cost more than our entire house. Frank was still alive then, but already sick. We felt out of place among the wealthy guests in designer clothes, but we were so proud of our daughter. I remember Bradley's mother commenting on my dress, asking if I had made it myself. I hadn't, but the implication was clear. I didn't quite fit into their world. After they married, the distance grew even wider. Amanda gave birth to Jackson shortly after the wedding, and then Lily 2 years later. My beautiful grandchildren who barely know me. Frank only got to meet Jackson once before he passed. I've sent birthday and Christmas presents faithfully every year, called on special occasions, and tried to maintain our connection despite the growing chasm. Amanda would send professional family photos each Christmas, everyone perfectly posed in coordinated outfits, but personal visits became increasingly rare. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I checked my lottery ticket against the numbers online, something I did mechanically, never expecting anything. When the screen showed a match for all 6 numbers, I thought there must be some mistake. I checked 3 more times before calling the lottery commission with shaking hands. The representative confirmed what seemed impossible. I had won. $43 million, the largest jackpot in Maine state lottery history. After the initial shock, I sat in my kitchen for hours, watching the sunlight move across the floor, trying to process this life-altering news. Frank would have been over the moon. I could almost hear his laugh, see the twinkle in his eye as he'd say, "Well, Nettie girl, looks like you'll be getting that scholarship fund after all." I decided not to tell anyone immediately, not even my sister Joan, who lives in Portland. First, I needed to speak with financial advisors and lawyers to understand what this meant. The Lottery Commission explained I had 90 days before my name would be publicly announced as the winner, giving me some time to prepare. After meeting with a financial team recommended by the Lottery Commission, I had a clear plan. Most of the money would go into trusts and secure investments. I would establish the Frank Williams Educational Foundation to help underprivileged students. Some would be set aside for Jackson and Lily's future education. And yes, I would finally be able to help my daughter, though Amanda and Bradley appeared financially comfortable from the outside. Before the news went public, I wanted to visit Amanda and her family. It had been nearly 2 years since I'd seen them last, when they spent 3 days in Maine during a larger East Coast trip. This time I would stay for 2 weeks, reconnect with my grandchildren, and share my news in person. I imagined Amanda's surprise, the chance to rebuild our relationship on equal footing. I booked a first-class flight to Chicago, my first time ever flying anything but economy. The leather seat, complimentary champagne, and attentive service made me feel like royalty. Throughout the flight, I imagined the upcoming reunion, picturing Amanda's face when I told her about the lottery, the hugs from my grandchildren when they realized Grandma Nettie could now help make their dreams come true. When I arrived at O'Hare Airport, Amanda was waiting for me, typing furiously on her phone. She gave me a quick side hug, took my carry-on bag, and immediately led me to the parking garage, all while finishing whatever important message she was sending. In the car, she apologized for being distracted, explaining that she was finalizing details for an important client presentation. Her home in the North Shore suburbs was even more impressive than the photos suggested, a sprawling brick colonial with manicured gardens and a circular driveway. Inside, marble floors gleamed in the entryway beneath a crystal chandelier. Everything looked like it belonged in a magazine, perfectly arranged and spotless. Jackson and Lily were finishing dinner with their nanny when we arrived. They were polite but reserved, shaking my hand like little adults instead of running into their grandmother's arms. Jackson, now 10, had Frank's eyes, but none of his warmth. Lily, 8, seemed shy, hiding partially behind the nanny while stealing glances at me. Bradley arrived home later that evening, bringing expensive bottles of wine and talking loudly on his phone about some business deal. When he finally acknowledged my presence, his handshake was firm, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. He called me Mrs. Williams rather than Nettie, creating a formality that set the tone for my visit. Dinner that first night started pleasantly enough. Amanda had ordered catering from what she described as the best Italian place in Chicago. Over pasta and wine, she mentioned casually that Bradley's parents would be joining us in 2 days for the weekend. "Mom and Dad are driving up from Lake Forest," Bradley explained, swirling his wine expertly. "They just got back from a month in Tuscany and can't wait to see the kids." "That's wonderful," I replied, genuinely happy at the thought of more family around. "It'll be nice to spend time with them, too." An awkward silence followed before Amanda cleared her throat. "About the sleeping arrangements," she began, not quite meeting my eyes. "We'll need to make some adjustments." Later that evening, while I was reading in the living room, I overheard Amanda and Bradley talking in the kitchen. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but their voices carried through the quiet house. "Your mother can sleep in the attic room," Bradley was saying. "My parents will need both guest bedrooms, since Dad snores so badly now." "Are you sure?" Amanda's voice had a hint of concern. "It's not exactly comfortable up there." "It's only for a few days," Bradley responded dismissively. "Besides, it's not like she's used to luxury anyway. Your mom will be fine." There was a pause before Amanda agreed. "You're right. I'll put some fresh sheets up there tomorrow." My heart sank as I realized I was being relegated to what amounted to storage space, while elaborate preparations were being made for Bradley's parents. Still, I decided not to make a fuss. I had come to reconnect with my family, not create tension. The next morning, Amanda led me up 2 flights of stairs past the second floor, where the family bedrooms and guest rooms were located, to a narrow door at the end of the hallway. The stairs beyond were steep and creaked with every step. The attic space was large but clearly used primarily for storage. Cardboard boxes were stacked against the walls. Old furniture draped with sheets occupied one corner, and a layer of dust covered most surfaces. "We don't come up here much," Amanda explained, switching on a single bulb hanging from the center of the sloped ceiling. "But there's a pull-out couch that should be comfortable enough. The bathroom's downstairs, I'm afraid, but you can use the one in the hallway." The pull-out couch was an ancient sofa bed that had seen better days decades ago. When Amanda opened it, the metal frame groaned in protest, and I could see springs poking through the thin mattress in several places. She quickly covered it with sheets and a thin blanket, avoiding my eyes. "I'll bring up a fan," she added. "It gets pretty warm up here during the day, but sometimes chilly at night. Climate control doesn't quite reach the 3rd floor." After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the springs push against my legs. The single window was small and covered with a dusty blind that, when opened, revealed only the roof of the garage. There was no proper closet, just a metal rack with a few wire hangers. A wobbly side table with a small lamp completed the furnishings. As I unpacked my modest suitcase, I discovered a box of old photo albums pushed against the wall. Opening one, I found pictures of myself, holding Amanda as a baby, Frank teaching her to ride a bike, family picnics and Christmas mornings from years ago. Seeing these precious memories stuffed away in an attic spoke volumes about my place in Amanda's life now. Bradley's parents arrived the following afternoon in a sleek black Mercedes. Their entrance was treated like visiting royalty. Amanda had arranged fresh flowers throughout the house, prepared gourmet appetizers, and even had the children dressed in matching outfits. I watched from the kitchen doorway as Bradley's father, Richard, a tall man with perfectly coiffed silver hair, handed Amanda a large gift bag from Saks Fifth Avenue. His wife, Judith, elegantly dressed with immaculate jewelry, embraced Bradley warmly before turning to the children with expensive-looking packages. I was introduced almost as an afterthought. "And this is Brad's mother-in-law, Mrs. Williams," Amanda said, gesturing vaguely in my direction. "Not my mother or even Nettie, but defined solely by my relation to her husband." Judith gave me a quick once-over, noting my simple slacks and blouse. "How nice you could visit," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Amanda mentioned you were a school teacher." "Elementary school," I confirmed. "3rd grade for most of my career." "How charming," she replied, in a tone that suggested anything but. "My sister briefly considered teaching before she found her calling in interior design. She does the governor's vacation home now." Throughout the evening, I observed how differently Amanda behaved around Bradley's parents. Her laugh was higher, her gestures more animated, her stories carefully curated to impress. When conversation turned to their recent European travels or the country club renovation, I had nothing to contribute and was effectively invisible. That first night in the attic was even worse than I had anticipated. The pull-out bed's springs dug into my back relentlessly, making sleep nearly impossible. The single bulb cast eerie shadows across the dusty space. From below, I could hear laughter and conversation as Amanda Bradley and his parents continued enjoying wine in the garden patio, the sound of their merriment floating up through the old house's ventilation system. Around midnight, I needed to use the bathroom, which meant navigating the steep, dark stairs, 2 floors down. With just my phone's flashlight to guide me, I nearly slipped on the second step, catching myself against the wall just in time. The noise must have been audible because the garden conversation paused briefly before resuming with no one checking to see what had happened. Back in the attic, I discovered I wasn't entirely alone after all. A mouse scurried across the floorboards, disappearing behind a stack of boxes. Fighting back tears, I sat on the uncomfortable bed and opened one of the photo albums I'd found earlier. A picture of Frank holding 3-year-old Amanda on his shoulders at a county fair stared back at me. We had so little back then, but so much love filled our tiny apartment. As I finally drifted off to sleep, I made a decision. I would endure this treatment with dignity, focusing on building relationships with my grandchildren. They were the future, and no amount of social climbing or status seeking could change the fact that I was their grandmother. The next morning I woke early, my back aching from the uneven mattress. Determined to make the best of the situation, I carefully made my way downstairs to find Jackson and Lily already awake, watching cartoons in the family room while their nanny prepared breakfast. I had brought special gifts for each of them, items I'd carefully selected before winning the lottery. For Jackson, a handmade wooden chess set, carved by an artisan in my coastal town, each piece depicting maritime creatures. For Lily, a beautifully illustrated book of fairy tales and a patchwork quilt I had sewn myself during the long Maine winters. When I presented these gifts, the children were politely appreciative, but clearly unaccustomed to handmade items. Jackson examined the chess pieces with interest, but set them aside when his iPad chimed with a notification. Lily, however, seemed genuinely drawn to the colorful quilt running her small fingers over the different textures. "Would you like me to read you one of the stories?" I asked Lily, opening the fairy tale book. She nodded shyly, climbing onto the sofa beside me. We were halfway through The Snow Queen when Amanda entered. "Lily, honey, you're going to be late for tennis lessons," she interrupted, barely acknowledging the reading session. "And don't forget, you have Mandarin tutoring after lunch." The disappointment on Lily's face was quickly masked as she slid off the sofa. "Thank you for the book, Grandma," she said formally before being whisked away by her mother. Later that day, I discovered Lily struggling with a reading assignment for school. When I offered to help, she brightened considerably. We sat together at the kitchen table away from the adults who were having drinks on the patio and worked through the challenging words. By the end of the session, Lily was reading more confidently, beaming with pride at her accomplishment. "You're really good at teaching, Grandma," she said, the first genuine compliment I'd received since arriving. Just as we were connecting, Bradley poked his head into the kitchen. "Lily, don't bother your grandmother," he admonished, though I was clearly engaged and enjoying our time together. "Grandma needs her rest. Why don't you go play with your cousins?" "We're just fine." I tried to explain, but Lily had already scampered away, leaving her book behind. It became increasingly clear that the children knew very little about me or their late grandfather. When I mentioned Frank's love of fishing, Jackson looked confused. "Who's Frank?" he asked innocently. "Your grandfather, my husband," I explained, showing him a photo I kept in my wallet. "Oh," Jackson replied, "Mom never talks about him." The realization that my daughter had effectively erased Frank from her children's knowledge was perhaps more painful than the attic bedroom. It was as if our modest background was something to be ashamed of, a chapter better left unmentioned in the glossy story of her new life. As the days passed, I encountered a series of small indignities. When Amanda and Bradley took his parents to an exclusive golf club for lunch, I wasn't included in the invitation. "It's members only, Mom," Amanda explained hurriedly. "Very strict rules, you understand." When their wealthy neighbors came over for drinks, Bradley suggested I might be more comfortable upstairs. During a dinner party for Amanda's colleagues, I was asked to eat earlier in the kitchen since they were one chair short at the dining table. Each slight was delivered with a thin veneer of consideration, making it impossible to object, without seeming ungrateful or overly sensitive. I observed how Bradley's parents were included in everything, their opinions solicited, their comfort prioritized, while I became increasingly invisible in my daughter's home. The breaking point came on Amanda's birthday. Bradley had arranged a dinner at an exclusive restaurant downtown, apparently a difficult reservation to secure. When we arrived, I discovered I hadn't been included in the original reservation count. "We can squeeze in another chair," the host said, looking displeased at the adjustment. At the table, I found myself seated at the far end, next to the kitchen doors, while Bradley's parents occupied prominent positions near Amanda. The conversation revolved around topics deliberately exclusive: wealth management strategies, country club politics, mutual friends I'd never met. When I tried to share a memory of Amanda's childhood birthdays, Bradley's mother quickly redirected the conversation to their recent Mediterranean cruise. The waiter brought me a different appetizer than I had ordered, but when I tried to mention it, Amanda quickly interjected, "It's fine, she'll eat anything," as if I were a child without preferences or dignity. When the bill arrived, Bradley made a show of his generosity, waving away his father's token offer to contribute. "I imagine this is quite different from teacher appreciation lunches," he joked, glancing my way, eliciting polite laughter from around the table. On the car ride home, Amanda critiqued my table manners. "Mom, you don't need to thank the server every single time they refill your water," she said with exasperation. "And you were holding your wine glass by the bowl, not the stem." I remained silent, the cumulative weight of a week's worth of slights pressing down on me. Back at the house, I retreated to my attic room, finally allowing the tears to come. While searching for tissues, I discovered a box containing dozens of letters I'd written to Amanda over the years after she moved to Chicago. Each envelope had been opened, each message read, yet the growing distance between us suggested their contents had meant little. That night, I called my sister Joan, stepping outside onto the small balcony off the kitchen for privacy. "They put you where?" Joan asked incredulously when I described my sleeping arrangements. "In the attic," I repeated, keeping my voice low, "with an old pull-out couch that's mostly springs." "While those in-laws get guest rooms, that's outrageous, Nettie. You should come home right now." "I don't want to leave yet," I admitted. "The grandchildren are just starting to warm up to me, and confronting Amanda won't help anything." "You're too forgiving," Joan sighed. "Always have been." "It's not about forgiveness," I explained. "It's about maintaining my dignity. Making a scene would only validate their view of me as unsophisticated and emotional." As I ended the call, I realized I was formulating what I would later think of as my quiet plan, a way to navigate the remainder of my visit with Grace while preparing for the inevitable revelation of my changed circumstances. Back in the attic, looking through old family photos by the dim light, I finally accepted a painful truth. My daughter had chosen status and appearances over authentic family connection. The realization brought both sorrow and, surprisingly, a kind of liberation. I could stop trying so hard to fit into a world that was determined to exclude me. The next morning brought an unexpected ally. Maria, the housekeeper who came 3 times weekly, found me attempting to fix the wobbly side table in the attic. "Mrs. Williams let me help you with that," she offered, taking the screwdriver from my hands. With efficient movements, she tightened the loose legs. "This old furniture, it has been up here for years." As she worked, we began talking. Maria was from Guatemala, originally had been in America for 15 years, and had a daughter studying nursing at a community college. "Rosa works so hard," Maria said proudly. 2 jobs plus full-time school. She wants to be the first in our family with a college degree." "That's wonderful," I replied sincerely. "My husband and I worked extra jobs so Amanda could go to college too." Maria looked around the attic space, then back at me, her expression saying what politeness wouldn't allow. "Miss Amanda has changed much since I started working here 5 years ago," she commented carefully. Over the next few days, Maria became my confidant. She would bring me fresh towels or offer a cup of tea, lingering to chat when the family was out. Through her, I learned more about the household dynamics, how Bradley controlled the finances completely, how Amanda struggled to maintain their lavish lifestyle, how the children were overscheduled with activities designed more for prestige than enjoyment. They fight about money more than they think I hear, Maria confided one afternoon while helping me organize my belongings. Big house, big cars, big vacation all need big money. I thanked Maria for her kindness and on impulse asked about her daughter's college situation. When she mentioned Rosa's struggle to afford textbooks, I made a mental note. My lottery winnings would soon allow me to help deserving students like Rosa, even if my own daughter didn't need or appreciate my assistance. That evening, I inadvertently overheard a conversation that confirmed my worst suspicions. Passing by Bradley's home office on my way to the kitchen, I heard my name and paused outside the partially open door. "Having your mother here is like hosting a charity case," Bradley was saying. "My clients nearly spotted her during Tuesday's meeting. Can you imagine trying to explain that to the Hendersons?" "It's only for another week," Amanda replied, her voice tired. What was I supposed to do? She's still my mother. "The problem with housing a teacher," Bradley continued as if she hadn't spoken, "is that they have no concept of our world. The way she gawks at everything, asks how much things cost. It's embarrassing, Amanda." There was a pause before Amanda spoke her words, striking deeper than any physical blow could have. "I know. Sometimes I wish I had a more sophisticated mother, someone who could fit in with our friends. It's hard having such an ordinary background." "Well, at least we know we won't have to support her in old age," Bradley added callously. "Teachers have pensions, right? Because frankly, we can't afford any additional financial burdens right now." I backed away silently, my hands trembling. The casual cruelty of their assessment hurt beyond measure, but beneath the pain, a strange calm began to form. In just over a week, my financial situation would become public knowledge. The irony that my ordinary background had taught me the value of a single dollar, the importance of saving for the future, and the joy of simple pleasures, all lessons that would serve me well as a multimillionaire, was not lost on me. That weekend, Bradley's extended family joined us for a barbecue in the expansive backyard. I was introduced repeatedly as Amanda's mother, who was a teacher in Maine. The emphasis always on my profession, as if it were a quaint curiosity. Bradley's sister, a woman dripping in designer logos, asked if I had considered downsizing now that you're retired, with a tone suggesting my financial stability was in question. Whenever the grandchildren showed interest in my stories, particularly tales of their mother's childhood, they were quickly diverted to other activities or conversations. It was as if Amanda feared contamination from her modest roots, preferring to present herself as having sprung fully formed into wealth and status. The only genuine connection I made was with Bradley's Uncle Harold, a retired history professor who, like me, seemed out of place among the status-conscious gathering. We found a quiet corner to discuss books and teaching a brief respite from the performance of wealth happening around us. "Don't let them get to you," Harold advised quietly as we watched the others compare watches and vacation properties. "Most of them are leveraged to the hilt. All flash, no substance." His words were comforting, but the feeling of being an unwelcome outsider persisted throughout the event. I observed how seamlessly Bradley's parents fit into this world, how Amanda deferred to their opinions, how the children were being groomed to value external validation and material success above all. On the barbecue's final day, I stepped outside to take a private call from my financial advisor. The Lottery Commission had processed all the paperwork, and the public announcement would happen in 3 days. We discussed the trust fund I was establishing for Jackson and Lily, as well as the educational foundation in Frank's name. "The initial endowment will be $15 million. I confirmed watching butterflies dance around Amanda's carefully cultivated roses, with scholarship distributions beginning next academic year. As I ended the call, I turned to find Amanda watching me from the patio door, a slight frown on her face. "Who were you talking to, Mom?" she asked, clearly annoyed. "Bradley's clients are here. I hope you weren't bothering someone with lengthy calls." "Just taking care of some business," I replied mildly. "Nothing for you to worry about." She looked skeptical but was called away by Judith before she could press further. I watched her go, wondering how she would react when my news became public. Would money finally make me visible in my daughter's world? And more importantly, did I even want that kind of conditional acceptance? My last days in the attic took on a bittersweet quality. Despite the uncomfortable bed, the inconvenient bathroom situation, and the general feeling of being an afterthought, I had found a kind of peace. I spent mornings with the grandchildren when possible, cherishing Lily's growing attachment to our reading sessions, and Jackson's reluctant interest in the stories I told about his grandfather's fishing adventures. I wrote heartfelt letters to both children to be given to them when they were older, sharing family history values and unconditional love that transcended material wealth. I met secretly with Maria to arrange a full scholarship for her daughter Rosa through my soon-to-be-established foundation. Throughout it all, I maintained a dignified, kind demeanor toward everyone, including Bradley and his parents. Small acts of consideration became my quiet rebellion, washing dishes after family meals, leaving thoughtful notes for the children, helping Maria with household tasks, despite Amanda's embarrassed objections. On my final night, I carefully repacked my modest suitcase, leaving the attic space cleaner than I had found it. I took one last look at the uncomfortable pull-out bed that had been my assigned place in my daughter's home, running my hand along the worn fabric. In an odd way, this attic room had become symbolic of my journey from feeling rejected to finding inner strength. I placed the old family photo albums in a more prominent position, hoping Amanda might rediscover them someday and remember the loving family that had supported her dreams long before luxury cars and country club memberships entered the picture. The morning that changed everything began like any other. The family was gathered around the breakfast table, Bradley checking stock prices on his tablet, Amanda reviewing her schedule, the children eating quietly, while Judith discussed plans for the day. I had just taken a seat with my coffee when the television in the adjacent family room, always tuned to a financial news channel, caught everyone's attention. "Breaking news from Maine," the announcer said. "The winner of last month's $43 million Powerball jackpot has been officially announced. Retired elementary school teacher Nettie Williams from Rockport claimed the prize, opting for the lump sum payment of $27 million after taxes." My photo appeared on the screen, a simple headshot from my retirement party. The room fell completely silent. Bradley's coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. Amanda's face drained of all color as she stared at the television, then at me. The children looked confused by the adults' reactions, while Bradley's parents exchanged meaningful glances. "Did they just say—" Amanda began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, dear," I replied calmly, taking a sip of my coffee. "I won the lottery a few weeks ago. The paperwork was finalized right before I came to visit." Bradley recovered first, his expression transforming from shock to an overly friendly smile that never reached his eyes. "Nettie, this is incredible news. Why didn't you tell us?" "I wanted to wait until everything was official," I explained, maintaining my composure. "And I wanted to spend time with family without money complicating things." "Complicating?" Amanda repeated, her voice strained. "Mom, this is wonderful. We should celebrate." "We need to move you out of that attic immediately," Bradley declared, standing up. "The blue guest room is much more appropriate. I'll help you move your things right away." Judith, who had been quietly observing, suddenly became animated. "Nettie, we simply must extend our stay. We've barely had time to really get to know each other." The children, unlike the adults, reacted with uncomplicated joy. "Grandma's rich," Jackson exclaimed. "That's so cool!" Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Can we visit you in Maine now? I want to see where you live." In the midst of the chaos, I caught Maria's eye as she stood in the kitchen doorway. Her knowing smile told me she understood exactly what was happening and approved of how I was handling it. Amanda pulled me aside into the hallway, her face a mix of emotions. "Mom, there must have been some misunderstanding about the sleeping arrangements," she said hurriedly. "We never meant to make you uncomfortable in the attic. It was just a temporary solution because of Bradley's parents." "It's fine, Amanda," I replied gently. "The attic was perfectly adequate for my needs. But now we can move you to a proper room," she insisted, "and we should discuss your plans. Financial management is complicated, and Bradley has excellent advisors." I smiled. "I've already assembled a team of financial experts. Everything's been arranged, including trust funds for Jackson and Lily's education." Her eyes widened. "Trust funds for the children." "Of course, they're my grandchildren. And I've established an educational foundation in your father's name. The Frank Williams Foundation will provide scholarships to deserving students who can't afford college." Before she could respond, Bradley appeared with breakfast on a tray. "I thought you might like to eat in comfort," he said, gesturing toward the formal dining room. "We have so much to talk about." I checked my watch. "Actually, I've called a taxi. My flight leaves in 3 hours and I should get to the airport." "You're leaving?" Amanda asked, genuinely surprised. "But we haven't had a chance to really talk about all this." "We've had 2 weeks to talk, dear," I reminded her gently. "I need to get back to Maine. There's much to do." Bradley's face fell slightly. "At least let me drive you to the airport. First class, I assume." "The taxi will be fine," I said firmly. "And yes, I'm flying first class. It's quite comfortable." As I gathered my belongings, the family scrambled to adjust to this new reality. Bradley made rapid-fire calls to what sounded like financial advisors. Amanda frantically searched online for information about my lottery win. The children refreshingly just wanted to know if I would bring them presents from Maine. When the taxi arrived, Amanda followed me out to the driveway, clearly distressed. "Mom, please don't go like this. I feel like there's so much unsaid." I turned to her, setting my suitcase down. "I think we've both said plenty over these 2 weeks, Amanda. Some with words, some with actions." "If this is about the attic," she began. "It's not just about the attic," I interrupted gently. "It's about how quickly you and Bradley decided I wasn't worth basic consideration. It's about how your father has been erased from your children's knowledge. It's about values, Amanda." For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine remorse in her eyes. "I never meant to. Things just got so busy, and Bradley's family has expectations." "We all make choices about what matters to us," I said. "I chose to stay in the attic without complaint, because being near my grandchildren was more important than my comfort. What choices have you been making?" The taxi driver honked gently, reminding me of the waiting meter. I embraced Amanda briefly, then the children who had come running out to say goodbye. "I love you all," I said sincerely. "My door is always open." As the taxi pulled away, I caught a last glimpse of my daughter standing in her circular driveway, looking smaller somehow against the backdrop of her imposing house. The journey had just begun for both of us. Amanda followed me to O'Hare, arriving as I was checking in for my flight. Her hair was uncombed, her designer outfit wrinkled, suggesting she had left in a hurry. "Mom, please, we need to talk," she said, slightly out of breath. "I can't let you leave like this." We found a quiet corner in an airport cafe, ordered coffee neither of us really wanted, and faced each other across the small table. For several minutes, neither of us spoke, the weight of 20 years of growing distance hanging between us. "I don't know where to start," Amanda finally admitted, twisting her diamond wedding band. "Why don't we start with honesty?" I suggested. Something that's been in short supply lately. She flinched but nodded. I was awful to you. The attic, the way I let Bradley and his family treat you, all of it. There's no excuse. But there are reasons, I said quietly. I'd like to understand them. Amanda's carefully maintained facade cracked tears welling in her eyes. I've been trying so hard to belong in their world, she whispered. Bradley's family, our neighbors, his business associates, they all come from money. Old money. I'm always the outsider, the scholarship girl who married up. I thought if I could just erase my background. You could erase me, I finished for her. It sounds horrible when you say it out loud, she acknowledged, wiping away tears. But yes, in a way. And the more I did it, the easier it became to treat you as less than. And now that I have money, I asked. The question hung in the air, uncomfortable in its directness. Amanda had the grace to look ashamed. That's the worst part, she admitted. When I heard the news, my first thought wasn't happiness for you. It was relief that you would finally fit in, that Bradley's family would accept you now. How twisted is that? Money changes how people see you, I acknowledged, but it shouldn't change how family treats you. We talked for nearly an hour, more honestly than we had in years. Amanda revealed the financial strain behind their seemingly perfect life. The mortgage they could barely afford, the credit card debt accumulating from trying to keep up with Bradley's wealthy friends, the constant fear of being exposed as frauds in a world built on financial one-upmanship. Bradley's business isn't doing as well as everyone thinks, she confessed. The recession hit luxury car sales hard. We've been living on credit and appearances for years. I listened without judgment, recognizing the prison my daughter had built for herself. When she asked about my plans for the money, I was truthful but firm. Most of it is already allocated, I explained. The educational foundation, the trust funds for the children that they can access at 25 security for my retirement, and some for your Aunt Joan. I'm not interested in mansions or luxury goods, Amanda. Money doesn't change what matters to me. And us? She asked hesitantly. Where do we go from here? That depends on you, I replied. I will always love you as my daughter, but I need respect as a person. Money or no money, attic or guest room, I deserve basic dignity in your home and in your life. Amanda nodded, looking both chastened and thoughtful. I want to do better, she said. For the kids, for you, for myself. I'm not sure Bradley will change, though. That's something you'll need to figure out, I told her. But know that you and the children always have a place with me, regardless of circumstances. As my boarding call sounded, we embraced, not with the quick, perfunctory hug of my arrival, but with genuine emotion. This isn't fixed, I said honestly, but it's a start. When I arrived back in Maine, my quiet life had been transformed by media attention. Local news vans parked near my cottage, reporters hoping for interviews about the teacher-turned-millionaire story. I declined most requests, protecting my privacy while adjusting to my new reality. The first order of business was establishing the Frank Williams Educational Foundation with an initial endowment of $15 million. I hired education professionals to manage the application process with a focus on students who showed promise but lacked financial resources. Rather than buying a mansion or luxury items, I purchased a slightly larger home in the same coastal community with enough bedrooms for family visits and a proper office to manage foundation business. My sister Joan received enough to buy the small cottage she'd been eyeing for retirement, and to travel to Italy, a lifelong dream. While I maintained privacy about the family situation, the story of my attic stay became public after Bradley made indiscreet comments at his country club. A local Chicago reporter picked up the story, framing it as a Cinderella tale with a twist. Public sympathy turned decidedly against Amanda and Bradley, creating additional strain in their social circles. The attic story is everywhere, Amanda reported during one of our weekly phone calls. Bradley's parents are mortified that people know how they treated you. The irony isn't lost on anyone. According to Amanda, their marriage was experiencing significant strain. Bradley blamed her for the attic decision that had now tarnished their reputation. Their arguments about the missed opportunity of my wealth grew more frequent. Friends who had once admired their lifestyle now whispered about their poor treatment of family. His parents keep pushing us to fix things with you, Amanda explained. They suddenly think family connections are the most important thing in the world. The irony was indeed striking. The same in-laws who had barely acknowledged my existence now saw me as a valuable connection. Bradley, who had dismissed me as just a teacher, now highlighted our relationship when convenient. The social world that had once excluded me was now eager for invitations to foundation events. Through it all, I maintained my principles and boundaries. The trust funds for Jackson and Lily were structured to support education and entrepreneurship, not lavish lifestyles. Maria's daughter, Rosa, became the foundation's first scholarship recipient, entering a 4-year nursing program with full funding. My former school received significant upgrades to its library and science facilities. Most importantly, I remained the same. Nettie still attending my book club, still volunteering at the hospital, still tending my garden. The only real difference was the absence of financial worry and the ability to help others in meaningful ways. 3 months after returning to Maine, I had settled into a new routine. My expanded but still modest home overlooking the ocean provided peace and purpose. The foundation office occupied what would have been a formal dining room with 2 part-time staff helping manage applications and distributions. The most significant change was my relationship with my grandchildren. After several discussions with Amanda, we established regular video calls where I read to Lily and shared stories with Jackson about their grandfather. Amanda, to her credit, no longer interrupted these connections or tried to limit my influence. "The kids miss you," she admitted during one call. "They keep asking when they can visit Maine." This led to a tentative invitation for Thanksgiving, extended to Amanda and the children, with clear expectations about respect and family values. Bradley, still struggling to accept the changed dynamic, opted to spend the holiday with his parents. In preparation for their visit, I had bedrooms prepared specially for each child with books, games, and comforts that reflected their interests rather than status symbols. For Amanda, I created a space that honored her childhood while respecting her adult identity, including photos of her academic achievements alongside family memories. The foundation awarded its first round of scholarships, including one to Maria's daughter. The local newspaper covered the story, focusing on the impact of educational opportunity rather than my lottery windfall. I began receiving letters from former students, many now parents themselves sharing memories of their time in my classroom. The Christmas gathering at my new home marked a turning point. Amanda arrived with the children, but without Bradley, who had chosen to ski in Aspen with his family. The simpler celebration focused on connection rather than consumption seemed to awaken something in Amanda. We cooked together in the kitchen, something we hadn't done since she was a teenager. The children helped decorate a modest tree with ornaments Frank and I had collected over decades each with a story attached. In the evenings, we looked through old family albums, with Amanda finally sharing memories of her father with her children. "He would have adored them," I said, showing a photo of Frank teaching 5-year-old Amanda to fish off the local pier. "I know," she replied softly. "I should have kept his memory alive for them." On their last evening after the children had gone to bed, Amanda approached me on the deck overlooking the winter ocean. "I've started therapy," she confessed, "trying to understand why I became so focused on status and appearances that I lost sight of what matters." "That takes courage," I acknowledged. "Bradley doesn't see the point," she continued. He thinks I should just get over it and focus on rebuilding our social connections. He's still fixated on your money, talking about investment opportunities and family businesses. And what do you think? I asked. She looked out at the dark waves, her profile reminiscent of the little girl who once collected seashells along this same coast. I think I've been chasing the wrong things for a very long time, she said finally, and I'm not sure my marriage can survive that realization. The healing process continued in the months that followed with steps forward and occasional retreats. I maintained firm boundaries with Bradley, declining his increasingly transparent investment proposals while keeping doors open for my daughter and grandchildren. My own journey involved processing complex emotions without becoming bitter. Therapy helped me understand that Amanda's behavior reflected her own insecurities rather than my worth as a mother. I learned to forgive without forgetting to maintain self-respect while offering second chances. The foundation work provided unexpected purpose, connecting me with young people whose dreams reminded me of my teaching days. One scholarship recipient, a young man from a fishing family who wanted to become a marine biologist, reminded me so much of Frank that our first meeting left me in happy tears. As spring arrived, bringing new growth to my garden, I reflected on the strange journey from that uncomfortable attic bed to my current life. The irony wasn't lost on me while Amanda and Bradley had chased material wealth at the cost of authentic connections. I had unexpectedly gained financial security while maintaining the values that truly mattered. The experience had taught me profound lessons about human nature, how quickly perceptions change when circumstances do, how money reveals character rather than building it, how maintaining dignity often requires quiet strength rather than dramatic confrontation, how forgiveness doesn't mean allowing mistreatment to continue. Most importantly, I learned that family healing is an ongoing journey rather than a perfect resolution. Amanda and I were rebuilding trust slowly, with honesty replacing pretense. The grandchildren were forming their own relationship with me based on genuine connection rather than obligation. Bradley remained focused on financial advantage, but that was his limitation to overcome, not mine to fix. The attic that was meant to diminish me had instead become the catalyst for transformation, not just financially, but spiritually. In that dusty, uncomfortable space, I had found clarity about what truly matters in this life long after money and status fade away. Have you ever experienced someone treating you differently after learning about a change in your circumstances? I've learned that true character shows in how people treat others when they think they have nothing to gain. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories about family forgiveness and finding your worth beyond others' perceptions. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that sometimes the greatest strength comes from staying true to yourself, even when others fail to see your value.